Okay, so it seems like recently there's been more updates to the whole Offkai Expo situation. Now, if you don't know, we've been talking about this quite a bit in terms of a lot of responses from many VTubers that have been kind of tuning in on this. Now, essentially, if you don't know what has happened with Offkai Expo recently, is they've been announcing a lot of people attending, including sponsors, VTubers, and whatever. And many people are concerned with some of the sponsors being ones like Fansly, right? Obviously, an adult site which features a lot of different creators that create adult kind of content, right? Which is okay. And obviously, there's a lot of people that are mad about Fansly anyways, but that's not my problem. It's more so the fact that people under the age of 18 can actually enter this event unattended by an adult. And of course, there are booths like this, which of course draws a lot of concerns as to will they be going to these booths and be exposed to this kind of stuff, or is there going to be some kind of things put in place? And that's what a lot of people are really wanting an answer to, and they still haven't made it clear, right? Because obviously they say you can come find them in the exhibitor hall, which is one of the main halls that they have there, which obviously it doesn't seem like it's very out of the way. But of course, there's been situations in the past where they've had like a curtain or whatever, and they've like checked IDs before you went in, or something like that, right? And obviously that would be fine if that was the case. But as I said, there's been no kind of communication on whether that would be the case and how that is really set up, over at the event, right? And that's had a lot of people concerned, because people are asking, what about, the fact that, there's kids that walk around during the day. Surely this is going to be done. Surely this is not going to be done while kids are around, correct? Surely we're really not going to put, blank in front of children, right? Which obviously, yeah, is something that lots of people have concerns with. And of course, there are other VTubers and stuff attending that are like loot-tubers and things, which people have been not too happy about either, because it's the same kind of reason, right? And yeah, I do think it's 100% one of those things where it is a valid concern, right? I think that it 100% should be separated off and should be hidden, so that, kids cannot enter it. And I think at the same time as well, it's one of these things where some people were saying, the convention should just be 18 plus anyways, right? Which of course could be the case, right? I think either of those kind of things work. It's just kind of the fact of like, if there is no protection whatsoever at all, it is just extremely weird, right? But as I said, we haven't had really any confirmation as far as I've seen about, any kind of, a protection or whatever for these booths, or there's going to be like a zone for these kind of booths and places, so that, people can't, see them or whatever, if they're not allowed to, right? But of course, there's been a lot of people. We covered Lucia Krabs the other day, saying, why do people demonize sex so much, and everything like that. And of course, I think they were kind of ignoring the part about the the convention itself, right, where there was going to be kids running around this convention, and that's the main thing that people are kind of unhappy about, right? And of course, Milky Ways has also actually commented on this situation, which I definitely think she has a much better kind of understanding of this, right? Saying the Offkai X Fantasy situation is kind of insane. I think they made a mistake approving the sponsor, mostly just because of the fact that young adults and teens being present in the convention in the general area. Would make sense if the sponsor was approved for After Night Offkai, which 100% is correct, right? And I know Milky Ways does make some kind of, what you call it, like NSFW content. I think it's mainly art. Again, I don't know. Maybe she makes other stuff as well. But, she is kind of like involved in that kind of space, right? And I think it's very understandable, right? I think she actually has a very good take there in terms of this situation, because she understands that, it's not like the case of everybody hates the work that she and other people do, which obviously some people do, of course, and that has been something that people have been spreading, which I don't agree with. But I do think at the same time, she obviously understands the fact that there is going to be kids at this event, and maybe this isn't exactly the best kind of place to be doing this, right? And that there are much better places, or as she says there, After Night Offkai, which I'm assuming is just some kind of like late night thing where, people would get like ID'd and whatever, before they go in, right? And I think that is 100%, a better way of doing it. But of course, we don't really know what's going on with that, right? And I think it is just nice to see a VTuber just kind of having this take, right? Because as I said, it's been kind of a lot of VTubers like defending, a lot of people based on the fact that, they've been getting harassed and stuff over it, which I think is fair enough, right? But, they just tend to completely ignore the actual fact of the situation of, there's going to be kids attending this event and we have no clue what is really going to be going on. They're mixing kids with adults and these kind of things. And these kind of like booths and whatever, and it just is very, very weird. And I think, obviously, yeah, Milky Ways has a good take there and saying like, hey, it is a little bit of a mistake if they aren't doing it in like a separate kind of place or a separate kind of event or whatever, which I think is, yeah, fair enough, right? They say, I've yet to go to a con that doesn't have stuff like Faku pretty blatantly advertised. It's not like they're going to be broadcasting as cities in the main area. You'll see stuff like Faku advertised at various points, like walking through dealers. The Faku booth will be open, curtailed off for sure, but like I said, I highly doubt Fancy is going to be showing off anything outside of 18 plus areas, which again, it's one of those things, right? Yeah, 100%, right? Maybe there's going to be a curtain there, whatever, but I think it's more so people just want confirmation, right? People want confirmation that this is going to be the case and that this is going to be a well-protected event. But again, we just haven't had any information on it, as far as I'm aware, of, a curtain being there or like a zone being there, kind of preventing people from going and seeing this kind of stuff, right? Think Americans would explode if they ever set foot in the Japanese cons, so they definitely would. So that's what they should have done, or at least been quiet about it and treated it like a closed-off 18-plus booth that's under guard, like the ones I've seen, like in MegaCon. The YouTuber hate that spiraled out of it, I think, is overblown, which, yeah, I do think is, yeah, fair enough. And they say, yep, and if you're going to have NSFW stuff be present, then be smart about it. Honestly, it's all a giant heap of everyone being wrong and right at the same time, which I do think is fair enough. I say, I was told old conventions had a portion closed off for the general public, for adult staff, and they say this is usually known to be the after nights area, an area where you need to ID to enter. But usually those are promoted within proper branding, so people know that these are sponsors that to accept in 18-plus areas where minors aren't allowed and actively hidden from the general public eye. Which, yeah, I mean, again, that's a good understanding, right, in terms of what is going on, in the sense of, yeah, they haven't properly promoted it, because they usually promote stuff like that, saying like, hey, we've got an 18-plus area where you can go to if you're 18-plus and you got your ID and things like that. You can go there and check this kind of stuff out, but they haven't, it doesn't seem like there is anything like that, right? And more people saying, I guess that I'm not reading that. I said maybe it's because I've been in this situation before. 10-year convention veteran goer here, 7-year artist alley, but NSFW booths are super hush-hush in the cons I've been to, anime and comic book conventions in Canada. You need to get ID'd and nothing sexual is showing from the alley so kids don't get exposed to it. I just assume that's what they did in the States too, which again, it is 100% like an assumption of like, yes, this probably is something that, usually does happen at conventions, but does this happen at Offkai, right? Because, there is like a standard for conventions, right? Whenever it comes to, people saying there's a curtain or they do this or they do that or they do this, right? And that is usually the standard for American, conventions or whatever, sure. But you got to remember, like, these conventions aren't run by the same companies or places, right? They're not going to all collectively, have the same kind of stuff because it's not run by the same people. So I think that is something that, some people maybe do miss sometimes. Of course, it's like, yes, it should be there because most, conventions do this. And, it is one of these things where they should be following the norm of most conventions. But as I said, we haven't heard anything about this yet. It's not run by like the same production company as like other conventions or whatever. Well, I'm sure they do other conventions, but you get what I mean, right? It's just one of those things where, yes, although it is common within American conventions, it doesn't mean like it's a rule that they've set in place that is 100% there, which it should be a rule to be honest. But of course, some people just run things differently, right? So again, it is interesting. Obviously, I love to say it. I'm seeing a lot of attempts of straw manning and gaslighting coming from some individuals on this site over the IMO Offkai's bad taste Fansday announcement. I would have expected that the issue expressed by many on this would be quite cut and dry and obvious, but evidently, for one reason or another, some are misrepresenting the concerns as solely hating on YouTubers. For those who actually know what the problem is here, the complaints and controversy that some of the Offkai defenders are attacking is because Offkai, in their wisdom, decided to advertise fancy 18-plus content in the exhibitor hall. No mention of After Dark, no mention of an 18-plus restricted exhibition space, just a mere vague exhibition hall announcement. In other words, the implication of under 18 individuals who have access to the exhibition hall could potentially see 18-plus content or be introduced to that platform that houses predominantly 18-plus content. That is the problem that people are complaining about. Personally, I do not care about what 18-plus content you create of your own avatar. you do you. And yeah, 100%. So, however, have some baseline decency and honesty to acknowledge what the actual complaints are, and don't resort to shamelessly creating straw men and gaslighting the whole situation. Some people are unequivocally and irrationally against anything for Xtubing and LootTubing and will complain about the mere existence of them. It is what it is when everyone is their own person with their own mind, rational and irrational thoughts. They say that is, however, a minority, and those who complain about this minority opinion are going after low-hanging fruit. All in all, this is my opinion. If there's anything else important that I missed or go wrong, I will be more than willing to clarify, so feel free to. So, yeah, I mean, 100%. So also, in all honesty, if Offkai had the slight due diligence just to make right or even make one sentence like the fancy exhibition is subject to ID check or happening at Offkai after dark or something similar to that, I think most of the complaints would have not existed. 100% true. You know, this is 100% like hitting it on the the nail on the head, right? I think that is 100%. You know, exactly what I think as well in this situation, right? I don't hate VTubers or anything like that, or like some people do, and are using this as an opportunity to do so. It's more so just, you know, being concerned about the safety for the children that will be attending the event, right? And as you know, people said, oh, you know, oh, there's only gonna be like 10 kids there. Well, that's still 10 kids you got to protect, right? You can't just like ignore them just because there's only 10 and not 1,000, right? Which again, I think is just crazy. But yeah, I mean, that is essentially all there is for this video. If you guys did enjoy it, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Also, go to Game Subs, use my code Kaza, get 10% off. Again, they've got a ton of really cool stuff over there. Definitely recommend checking it out. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. That's all. See ya.